Wife, where are you? At home, love, said the husband. Wife, are you sure? Husband, yes. Wife, turn on the mixer. Husband turns mixer on. Ray. Wife, okay, my love, goodbye. The next day, suspicious wife, where are you? Husband, at home, love. Wife, are you sure? Husband, yes. Wife, turn on the mixer. Husband, turns mixer on. Wife, all right, goodbye. But the following day, the wife decides to drop in unannounced. At home, she finds only her son and asks, "Where's your father?" Son, I don't know. He went out with the mixer. A man who was very proud of having 6 children started calling his wife Mother of 6 to show off his achievement. Despite her protests, he continued with it. One evening they went to a party, and as the night wore on, he decided it was time to leave. He wanted to check if his wife was ready, so he loudly asked, "Shall we go home, Mother of 6? In response, his wife, a bit frustrated by his constant boasting, shot back, "Whenever you're ready, Father of 4. A boy walked down the road with a monkey perched on his shoulder when he passed a policeman. The officer stopped him and said, "Now, young man, I think you'd better take that monkey to the zoo." The boy nodded and walked off. The next day, the boy strolled down the same road, the monkey still happily sitting on his shoulder. The policeman spotted him again and exclaimed, "Hey, I thought I told you to take that monkey to the zoo." The boy grinned and replied, "I did. He loved it. Today I'm taking him to the cinema." A judge was instructing the jury that because a witness changed his statement after giving it to the police, he should not necessarily be regarded as untruthful. For example, the judge said, "When I entered my chambers today, I was certain that I had my gold watch in my pocket. Then I remembered that I had left it on my nightstand in my bedroom." When the judge arrived home that evening, his wife asked, "Why so much urgency for your watch? Don't you think sending 3 men to pick it up for you was a bit extreme?" "What?" exclaimed the judge. "I didn't send anyone for my watch, let alone 3 people. What did you do?" "I gave it to the first one," replied his wife, "and he knew exactly where it was." 2 doctors were discussing a case in a mental ward. The first doctor asked what had triggered such a profound depressive psychosis in the patient. The second one answered, "He's a lawyer. One day at home, he started to think about how much money he'd screwed his partners and clients out of over the last few years. He laughed so hard he defecated in his pants. When he smelled the foul odor he had created, he checked for the source. Finding his trousers full of the stuff, he thought he was leaking. This caused him to go into shock and faint. When he woke up, he found he had fallen on his arm, breaking it. The first doctor asked, "He went mad because he broke an arm?" The second medic answered, "No. He went mad because he couldn't figure out how to sue himself." One day in court, the prosecutor called his first witness, a chatty old woman known for her penchant for gossip. He began confidently, "Ma'am, do you know who I am?" The old woman smirked and said, "Oh, I know exactly who you are. You're John Kim. Let's see. Greedy, arrogant, and, if I'm not mistaken, keeping a mistress on the side. Of course I know you." The prosecutor turned red, struggling to maintain composure. Trying to deflect, he pointed to the defense lawyer. "And do you know who he is?" With a knowing glance, the woman nodded. "Oh, that's Kenneth Skye, a drunk, a gambler, and, let's be honest, not much of a lawyer. Yes, I know him too." The courtroom erupted into muffled laughter as the prosecutor and defense lawyer squirmed. The judge immediately banged his gavel and called them both to the bench. Leaning in, he growled, "If either of you fools asks if she knows me, you'll both be held in contempt." An elderly married couple scheduled their annual medical examination on the same day so they could travel together. After the husband's examination, the doctor then said to him, "You appear to be in good health. Do you have any medical concerns that you would like to discuss with me?" "In fact, I do," said the man. "After I have with my wife for the first time, I am usually hot and sweaty. And then, after I have with my wife the second time, I am usually cold and chilly." "This is very interesting," replied the doctor. "Let me do some research and get back to you." After examining the elderly wife, the doctor said to her, "Everything appears to be fine. Do you have any medical concerns that you would like to discuss with me?" The lady replied that she had no questions or concerns. The doctor then asked, "Your husband had an unusual concern. He claims that he is usually hot and sweaty after the first time with you, and then cold and chilly after the second time. Do you know why?" "Oh, that old buzzard," she replied. "That's because the first time is usually in July, and the second time is usually in December." Two alligators are sitting on the edge of a swamp. The small one turns to the big one and says, "I don't understand how you can be so much bigger than me. We're the same age. We were the same size as kids. I just don't get it." "Well," says the big alligator, "what have you been eating?" "Lawyers, same as you," replies the small alligator. Well, where do you catch them?" "Down at that law firm on the edge of the swamp." "Same here. How do you catch them?" "Well, I crawl under a car and wait for someone to unlock the door. Then I jump out, bite 'em, shake the out of 'em and eat 'em." "Ah," says the big alligator, "I think I see your problem. See, by the time you get done shaking the out of a lawyer, there's nothing left but lips and a briefcase." One evening, Jenny arrived home from work to find the children bathed, one load of clothes in the washer and another in the dryer, dinner on the stove, and the table set. She was astonished. Something was up. It turns out that Ralph had read an article that said wives who worked full-time and had to do their own housework were too tired to have. The night went well, and the next day she told her office friends all about it. "We had a great dinner. Ralph even cleaned up. He helped the kids do their homework, folded all the laundry, and put everything away. I really enjoyed the evening. But what about afterward? Asked her friends. Oh, that was perfect too. Ralph was too tired. There was a farmer who grew watermelons. He was doing pretty well, but he was disturbed by some local kids who would sneak into his watermelon patch at night and eat his watermelons. After some careful thought, he came up with a clever idea that he thought would scare the kids away for sure. He made up a sign and posted it in the field. The next night, the kids showed up, and they saw the sign which read, "Warning! One of the watermelons in this field has been injected with cyanide." The kids ran off, made up their own sign, and posted it next to the farmer's sign. When the farmer returned, he surveyed the field. He noticed that no watermelons were missing, but the sign next to his read, "Now there are 2." One day, 80-year-old Tom decided it was time to remarry. He turned to his friend Bob and asked, "Hey, should I get married again?" Bob, always supportive, replied, "Of course, go for it." Tom thought for a moment and then asked, "What about marrying a widow?" Bob, laughing, said, "Oh no, don't marry a widow. Go for a young, unmarried woman. She will be a widow soon enough." A young lad was visiting a church for the first time, checking all the announcements and posters along the walls. When he came to a group of pictures of men in uniform, he asked a nearby usher, "Who are all those men in the pictures?" The usher replied, "Why, those are our boys who died in the service." Dumbfounded, the youngster asked, "Was that the morning service or the evening service?" A helicopter was flying around above Seattle when an electrical malfunction disabled all of the aircraft's electronic navigation and communications equipment. Due to the clouds and haze, the pilot could not determine the helicopter's position. The pilot saw a tall building, flew toward it, circled, and held up a handwritten sign that said, "Where am I?" in large letters. People in the tall building quickly responded to the aircraft, drew a large sign, and held it in a building window. Their signs said, "You are in a helicopter." The pilot smiled, waved, looked at his map, determined the course to steer to SeaTac Airport, and landed safely. After they were on the ground, the co-pilot asked the pilot how he had done it. "I knew it had to be the Microsoft building, because they gave me a technically correct but completely useless answer." Selma telephones home with some exciting news. "Mama, I got married." "Congratulations, says Mama. "I might as well tell you, Mama. He's not of our faith." "So he's a goy. But am I prejudiced?" "But, Mama, he's also black." "So he's a Schwartz. By me, everybody should be tolerant." "Well, frankly, Mama, he's also unemployed." "So you'll support him. A wife should help her husband." "But, Mama, we have no place to live." "Don't worry, Selma dear. You'll move in with us." "But, Mama, you have only one bedroom." "That's okay. You and your husband can have the bedroom." "Yes, Mama. But where will you and Papa sleep?" "Papa can sleep on the couch in the living room." "Yes, Mama. But where will you sleep?" Selma, dear, about me you don't need to worry. The minute I get off the phone, I'm going to drop dead. A man is talking to his best friend about married life. You know, he says, I really trust my wife, and I think she has always been faithful to me. But there's always that doubt. His friend says, yeah, I know what you mean. A couple of weeks later, the man has to go out of town on business. Before he goes, he gets together with his friend. While I'm away, could you do me a favor? Could you watch my house and see if there is anything fishy going on? I mean, I trust my wife, but there's always that doubt. The friend agrees to help out, and the man leaves town. 2 weeks later, he comes back and meets his friend. So did anything happen? I have some bad news for you, says the friend. The day after you left, I saw a strange car pull up in front of your house. The horn honked and your wife ran out and got into the car, and they drove away. Later, after dark, the car came back. I saw your wife and a strange man get out. They went into the house and I saw a light go on. So I ran over and looked in the window. Your wife was kissing the man. Then he took off his shirt. Then she took off her top. Then they turned off the light. Then what happened? Says the man. I don't know. It was too dark to see. Damn, you see what I mean? There's always that doubt. Little Johnny goes to his grandfather and asks him to croak like a frog. Why, sure, Johnny, croak, says grandfather. Yay! Exclaimed Johnny. Confused, grandfather asks what's so exciting. Papa says we're going to be rich when you croak, replies Johnny. A couple in their 40s, who loved their children dearly, were tucking in their youngest son, who was only 10 years old. As they chatted before bed, they asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up. Son, I want 5 wives. Mom, 5 wives? And what will each one do? Son, well, one will cook, one will sing, one will bathe me. Mom, and one will put you to sleep. Son, no, Mom, I'll still sleep with you. The mother's eyes filled with tears. Oh, God bless you, son. Mom, but who will take care of your wives then? Son, they'll sleep with Daddy. The father's eyes filled with tears. God bless you, son. Little Johnny is always being teased by the other neighborhood boys for being stupid. Their favorite joke is to offer Johnny his choice between a nickel and a dime. Little Johnny always takes the nickel. One day, after Johnny takes the nickel, a neighbor takes him aside and says, Johnny, those boys are making fun of you. Don't you know that a dime is worth more than a nickel, even though the nickel's bigger? Johnny grins and says, well, if I took the dime, they'd stop doing it, and so far I've made $20. While munching on a pickle at the counter, a 3-year-old held out her hand and said, Look, Mommy, I killed a fly. Horrified, her mom grabbed her hands and scrubbed them thoroughly with soap. Once the girl was back at the table, the mom asked, amazed, How did you kill a fly all by yourself? Between bites, the girl proudly replied, I hit it with my pickle. 18. The wife is packing her clothes. Husband, and where do you think you're going? I'm moving to my mother. The husband starts packing too. Wife, and where do you think you're going? Husband, I'm moving to my mother too. Wife, and what about the kids? Husband, well, if you're going to your mother and I'm going to mine, I guess the kids should go to their mother. A man had just moved from his big apartment in NYC to a big farm way out in the countryside. Just days after he moved, he realized he was out of chicken feed, so he went down to the nearest store, a good 2-hour drive away. Can I get me some chicken feed? The man asked. Yup, but you can't have none unless you can prove to me you actually got chickens. Don't want no one eating it or nothing and getting sick. The clerk responded. He argued with her a bit, but finally gave in and took a 2-hour drive back and forth once again, this time with the chicken. Here's my chicken. Now get me the chicken feed. He got his feed and drove home. The next day he ran out of dog food for his dog. Oh, once again, he drove down to the store, foolishly not thinking about bringing his dog. It was the same case. He had to present his dog to the stubborn clerk. He went back home and retrieved his dog and got his dog food. The next day he went down to the store again, this time with a shoebox with a lid on it that had a hole in the top. He walked into the store and said to the clerk, "Smell this." "That smells like crap," she said with a look of surprise on her face. "Oh, toilet paper." A kind-hearted motorist saw a man struggling to change a tire alongside the highway and pulled over to see whether he could help. The man had a very red face and a dark smear across it where he'd wiped off sweat with dirty hands. His tie was undone and his shirt collar askew, and it was clear he had also wiped his hands on his once white shirt. Close to him stood an immaculately neat woman who was speaking in quick, agitated tones. "Hello there," said the motorist. "Say, I've changed a lot of tires. Maybe I can help here." "You sure can," the man with the flat tire replied wearily. "My wife is an expert too. If you will just do all the arguing with her about how this tire ought to be changed, I will concentrate on the dirty work and get the job done." A son took his aging father to a restaurant for a nice dinner. The father, being elderly and frail, sometimes dropped food onto his shirt and pants as he ate. Other diners glanced at him with looks of disapproval, their expressions filled with discomfort. But the son remained unfazed, calmly supporting his father throughout the meal. When they finished eating, the son gently helped his father up and guided him to the restroom. There he tenderly wiped the food from his father's wrinkled face, cleaned the stains on his clothes as best he could, carefully combed his father's grey hair, and adjusted his glasses. As they walked back to their table, a deep silence had fallen over the restaurant. The son quietly paid the bill and prepared to leave, when an older gentleman from another table stood up and approached them. "Excuse me," the man said, addressing the son. "Don't you think you left something behind?" The young man looked at him, puzzled. "I don't think so," he replied. The stranger smiled and said, "Oh, but you did. You left a lesson for every son here, and a hope for every father. In that moment, the entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. The silence was so profound you could hear a pin drop. One of life's greatest honors is caring for those who once cared for us. Oh, our parents and elders who sacrificed their time, energy, and resources to give us a better life deserve nothing less than our deepest respect and love. An old man purchased a well from a clever trickster. The very next day, the trickster stopped the old man on the road and said with a sly grin, "I sold you the well, but not the water in it. If you want to use the water, you'll have to pay me." The old man paused, sizing him up, then calmly replied, "Actually, I was just about to visit you to ask when you plan to remove your water. You see, if you leave it there, I'll have to start charging you rent for using my well as storage." Sometimes trying to outsmart someone can backfire spectacularly.